All right, over the last couple of weeks, I have been sharing all my curriculum picks for first grade, kindergarten, family subjects, extracurriculars, you name it. We got it all out there. And today's video is going to be specifically showing you which of those things that we picked for our curriculum picks I got from Ambleside Online. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining me. So if you're new here, I am a homeschool mom of 3 littles. I am also a homeschool graduate, and this channel is basically where I share all my homeschool stuff, all the fun, nerdy research, you name it. But this video in particular was requested by one of you. A month or two ago, I did a video sharing just kind of my journey with Ambleside Online, my experience with deciding if we wanted to use it or not, my thoughts on it. And I will link that video here if you want to check that out. But towards the end of the video, I kind of shared some pieces that I was planning to pull from Ambleside Online, and I didn't share details of what books or what curriculum, but I kind of shared subjects, like resource subjects that I was planning to pull from. And I had somebody ask what in particular I was going to use from them, and so this video is because of that. So, like I said, I have shared all of my curriculum picks. So this isn't necessarily going to be new information as far as like, oh, these are new things that we're doing outside of those videos. These are me going into everything that I showed you in those videos and showing you what in particular I pulled from Ambleside Online. Okay, also, one other thing you need to know is I didn't pull them by year. So Ambleside Online is laid out in years according to your age. It's kind of like grades, but it's not. But year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3, and your child goes through each year. And my daughter would probably be in year 1, I think. Um, but the truth is, we're not using Ambleside as our core or as our whole. I'm just pulling resources from, so I'm not using their years as such. What instead I have done is I've downloaded their master book list, which has every book they recommend for every year, for required, for free reads, for all the options you have to choose from, all of it. And I'm basically resorting it to match with our history cycle. So our history cycle is going to be a 4-year history cycle. Ambleside Online is a 6-year history cycle. So when I pull history resources or read alouds that I want to match with the year of history that we're in, it's not going to line up with the year. So some of these resources are from year 1, year 0, year 4, whatever I thought was appropriate and fit within our homeschool year and matched with what I wanted. So some of these are from year 1, but some of these they're just mixed up from different years. So if you go on to like year 1, you will not see all of these things recommended, but if you go into their whole list, you will see them in. So just put that out there because that might help clarify things if you're like going to look and you're like, well, I don't see what she said. So just say that. Okay, I'm not going to share these in any particular order. I'm just kind of share them by category. First step, I guess, we'll just do kind of like geography and history. I've pulled a couple of resources from those. And the 2 things that we're doing for geography that were recommended by Ambleside Online, I think these were year 1 subjects or close to year 1, I don't remember, is Elementary Geography by Charlotte Mason. And I only downloaded the sample of this book to see if we like it before I actually go purchase it. And then this book I actually had already, and so I wanted to incorporate Home Geography by C.C. Long. And these basically are short lessons for you to do with your children, discussing navigation, discussing latitude and longitude, discussing distance, all just various aspects that relate to geography. And so we're going to incorporate these throughout the year. I'm going to try to do it roughly on the schedule that they have recommended, I think, because I don't really see a reason not to. So for their year 1, they use both these. I'm going to try and do what they say and see if we like it. But these are going to be what we pulled from Ambleside for geography. And then for history, so I am going to be using a lot of their resources upcoming, at least that's the plan, but more next year. We're going to be starting that. This year, I have a separate history spine that I'm going to be covering ancients with because Ambleside doesn't start with ancients, and it kind of touches lightly on ancients in comparison with some of the rest. So I couldn't really use their resources for history this year as much. Next year, I do plan to use a lot more of their spines, but one of the things that I am pulling in from them to go along with our other spine, so this is not going to be our main spine, but this is going to be an add-in, is A Child's History of the World. Now, when I say I got this from Ambleside, this is one of the recommended reads for to go along with some of their other reads, but it's not paired for ancient history because, like I said, they don't do ancient history in the early years. So next year, this would be on Ambleside Online's schedule for what we're doing for history. And so as a result, I thought, well, maybe we'll just pull it in this year, kind of get used to it, get the flow, and then we can kind of continue into it with next year's history since we're planning to use it next year. So yes, this was from them, but no, it wasn't recommended for necessarily the ancients, but that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be not using this as a required read or our main spine, but we're going to be pulling this in where we can and when we have time for it. And then the other kind of resource that we are pulling in is 50 Famous Stories by James Baldwin. I don't have the book yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it from the library or borrow it from a friend or if I'm going to buy it. But these are classic and mostly ancient stories of different heroes, and so, or famous people. And so we're going to try and read those where it's applicable within our history cycle as we can. So those are kind of the things I'm using from history. And then another thing that I'm taking from Ambleside Online is some of their what they would call the riches. Um, Basically, we're going to try to do a tea time. You hear like poetry tea times, but instead of just being a poetry tea time, I'm going to cycle through with poetry, hymn study, and artist and composer study. And so we're going to try and do a once a week kind of tea time thing, but with studying different things. And the hymn study, I have a different resource for, but I'm going to be using Ambleside Online's resources for artist and composer studies. Poetry, I'm not sure on that what we'll do within that cycle, but I'll find something. But for their artist and composer studies, we're going to be doing those together during tea time. So we'll listen to music, look at the art while we're listening to music, talk about both. And I'll be using their resources because they are accessible and I don't have to create my own. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to be following their current cycle or if I'm going to be looking and being like, oh, they have this composer. We want to study this composer. Let's use their resources this year. And the next composer, we'll kind of pick and choose what composers, or if I want to use like their year as a whole. I'm not really sure on that, but we will be using their resources. And then along those same lines, not for our poetry time, but in the morning with our devotions and our memory time, I also plan to pull in, and I've created my own cover on this, but this is basically just an anthology of poems that they have accessible online that I've copied over and formatted and printed for myself. And this is just their, I think you can purchase this. In fact, I'll link it below if you want. If you want to purchase it already printed, I just printed my own, but it did take a while to format for myself and make it how I wanted. So we'll just do a one-a-day poem from that anthology. Okay, so then the other two categories that I pulled from Ambleside Online this year was literature and read alouds. And for some people, you're going to be like, what's the difference between your literature and a read aloud? That's fair. Kind of what I'm considering the difference is my literature are things that I'm going to be scheduling into our school day or our school week, things that I want to read so much a week. And then read alouds is kind of like my list of books that I would like to read as a family this year, or at least have optional. We do not have to cover them all, but these are the ones that are kind of like on my pile to read with my kids. So that's kind of the difference in my mind. So literature, and we're not necessarily going to cover this whole book because this is a tome of a book. It is weighty. It is solid. But we want to start reading Uncle Remus, The Complete Tales. So just so many times a week, we'll pull open and start reading this together. And I'm looking forward to this. I remember some of these stories. My dad used to tell them to me. And I actually didn't even know this was a book until recently. I went, wait, I know those stories. So this was kind of a fun find for me. So this, in some ways, is kind of like a nostalgic sharing with my children, something that I remember. So, like I said, I'm not necessarily going to try to tackle this whole book, but we're just going to kind of read these throughout the year. And then I also downloaded and printed out um, this, which is 9 different fairy tales from Ambleside Online that they have access to. And I just, again, copied and printed it for myself. And so we're going to read these throughout the year. This particular collection is not their main resource. This particular collection, I think, is an optional collection that they have for people who want to do less on the magic side. People who, I don't want to say have stricter values because everybody's values, they have their own reasons for, but people who are trying to avoid certain things within their fairy tales, these are the fairy tales they recommend for that. So that's why you want these, because some of the things I did want to avoid and I wanted to cut down on, at least in these early years. So we're going to use these fairy tales. We're also going to try to read an Aesop fable daily. So that was, I think, one of their recommendations, but I already had this book, and so actually that worked in perfectly. And again, this was one of their recommendations was James Herriot's Treasury for Children, and we're going to read this slowly throughout the years, and I think my kids gonna love this. They're going to love these stories. So those would be kind of the literature that I pulled from them, the things that I want to schedule and that I want to be intentional about reading. And then some of the read alouds that I pull from them, and this is not my whole list of available read alouds. You can check out my curriculum picks below. I will have all of those linked. But these are the ones that Ambleside Online also has as free reads or within their literature recommendations. So Betsy and Tacy by Maud Hart Lovelace. So this is one that they have, I think, is a free read option. Little House in the Big Woods. If they didn't have this on their list, I probably would have just checked the whole list because it's not worth anything. This is such an amazing series, and I am really looking forward to delving in with my kids. This is one of those, again, nostalgic, just like maybe my favorite read aloud ever. So we're going to touch those. These two were in their list by Pond and River and Wildlife in the Woods and Field by Arabella Buckley. And so these were things that were from, I don't know if I got those from them or if they were just in their list, but those are on their list and I'm using them. And I just don't remember if I pulled from that or not. And then another one that's on their list of free reads is The Story of Dr. Dolittle, which I think this year I have quite a few nostalgic reads. This is another one that just I remember my mom reading to us and I have such good memories of, and I'm really looking forward to sharing with my kids. So those are the specific things that I've pulled from Ambleside Online for this year. I have already begun, because I am me and I like to plan ahead, even though things change and I know I'll have to change the plan, begun pulling what I want for next year. And I think I'm going to be using quite a bit more same subjects, but more resources from them next year. So, I mean, it's hard to say this far in advance. So if you like this, if you are enjoying seeing what I pull specifically from Ambleside Online, and you want to come to this time next year, if you want to see again what is specifically from Ambleside Online, separate from just the general picks that I've done, comment below and let me know, because I'm happy to do this kind of video if it's useful for you guys. Also, I would love to know if you're using anything from Ambleside Online this year, and if so, what it is. I'm always curious to see which pieces people see as valuable for them. Everybody picks something different, and so while these are what I saw as valuable and enriching to our homeschool this year, your picks might be completely different, and I always enjoy seeing that. So I hope you guys are having a great week. If you haven't seen my curriculum picks that these kind of came out of, like I said, I will link them all below so you can check those out, and we'll be seeing you guys again soon.